The message arrived at 3:17 Universal Time Coordinated. A fragment of static, a pulse between frequencies, like a heartbeat inside the radio noise. For 9 minutes, the signal repeated the same pattern, as if something alive were trying to speak through the ice of Europa. Dr. Jonas Roth was the first to isolate it. He'd been listening to the Jovian satellites for years, searching for seismic echoes, not voices. Yet what he heard that night didn't belong to geology. It sounded familiar. Human. "Play back again," he whispered. The waveform expanded on the monitor. And there, between two drops of static, a voice. Weak, distorted, almost drowning. It said only one word. Jonas. 3 weeks later, Roth volunteered for Mission E-13. A solo descent into the subglacial ocean, where the transmission had originated. NASA's protocol forbade unverified signals, but the committee approved the launch under a new directive: contact is contact. No one questioned his decision to go alone. Some said it was destiny. Others, obsession. But for Jonas, it was something simpler, the unbearable certainty that someone, or something, was waiting for him beneath the ice. He left orbit on a Thursday. By Sunday, communications from the Astronaut module fell silent. And in that silence, the signal began again, louder, clearer, and now repeating another name. Yours. Stay until the end, to hear what the signal said when it finally reached Earth again. Subscribe to the Silent Orbit, where every frequency hides a story. Chapter 1, The Descent to Silence. They launched him from the Europa orbital platform under a sky that wasn't really a sky, just Jupiter's swollen reflection over the frozen moon. The crew of Astronaut watched in silence as Jonas Roth's descent pod sank into the white abyss, swallowed by storms of powdered ice. There was no ceremony. No prayer. Just the quiet hum of a machine leaving the last orbit of human warmth. Inside the capsule, the temperature dropped a fraction every hour. The frost crawled up the windows like pale veins, and each breath fogged the glass until the outside world vanished completely. Jonas adjusted the oxygen feed and checked the life support monitor. Everything was normal. Except his pulse. It kept sinking, unnaturally, with the faint rhythm of the original signal. He told himself it was coincidence. A trick of anticipation. But when he closed his eyes, he could feel it in his bones, a pulse calling back. At 12 kilometers below surface, the light changed. The solar glare dissolved into a deep cerulean glow, the color of forgotten oceans. The probe's sonar mapped vast hollow chambers beneath the crust, like cathedrals carved in ice. From that depth, every sound was distorted, every echo stretched into a ghostly choir. Jonas opened the comm channel to Mission Control. Europa Base, this is Roth. I'm entering Cavity 3 Alpha. Visibility low. Temperature holding at -42. Static. He tried again. Base, confirm link. Only silence. He checked the telemetry feed, signal strength, 0. The line had cut as soon as he breached the inner cavern. He knew the rules, abort if communication fails, but he also knew the signal had come from deeper down. And that single word, his name, still lingered in his headset like a memory refusing to die. He switched to manual control. The thrusters hissed, pushing him through narrow tunnels of ice. Occasionally, he'd see shadows moving in the refraction, slow, elongated, almost graceful, as if the glacier itself were breathing. At 18 kilometers, the descent computer froze. Then flickered. Lines of alien code flashed across the screen, characters that didn't belong to any Earth language. For a moment, the pod lights dimmed and he heard, very faintly, what sounded like a whisper against the hull. A whisper shaped like his heartbeat. He pressed his helmet against the window. The darkness outside wasn't empty anymore. It shimmered. "Mission log," he said, forcing his voice steady. "Unidentified bioluminescence at Sector 9. Pattern matches, no, not matches, mimics human EEG frequency." The words felt insane even as he spoke them. Yet the data confirmed it. The light pulse outside the pod mirrored his brain activity almost perfectly, lagging by half a second. As if the ice were thinking back. Then came the second whisper. Louder. It didn't say Jonas. It said, "Welcome back." His throat tightened. He looked at the biometric feed, heart rate 128, oxygen stable. Everything normal. Everything wrong. He reached for the recorder, trying to analyze the signal frequency. But before he could isolate it, the pod jerked violently. The navigation system screamed overload. The descent cable snapped, throwing him weightless into the abyss. Through the spinning chaos, Jonas glimpsed something impossible, a silhouette moving inside the ice wall beside him. It wasn't human, but it had a face. A pale imitation, like a reflection learning to smile. Then, impact. Darkness. He woke to silence so complete it roared. The pod had settled in a frozen chamber lit by its own emergency beacon. Outside, the glow returned, slow waves of blue pulsing through the ice, steady and calm, breathing with him. "Base, do you copy?" he whispered. No answer. He removed one glove and touched the glass. The ice was warm. Chapter 2, The Whisper in the Core. When Jonas regained full awareness, the emergency lights had dimmed to a faint amber. The pod's instruments blinked erratically, struggling to read data that no longer obeyed human parameters. The air was heavy, as if the atmosphere itself were thickening. He checked his wrist display, oxygen reserves stable for 14 hours. Enough, if he could find a way back up. But he didn't want to go back. Not yet. The signal was still alive. He could feel it, not in his ears, but deep inside his skull, vibrating like the echo of a heartbeat that wasn't his own. He powered the external floodlights and stepped out into the frozen cavern. The ice beneath his boots was translucent, veined with shadows that seemed to move when he didn't. His breath condensed instantly, swirling around his helmet in ghostly halos. Every sound, each footstep, each breath, bounced through the cavern and returned altered, as if something else were trying to imitate him. He activated the scanner. The display filled with unreadable waveforms, oscillations too complex for geological origin. Then, amid the static, a pattern emerged: 4 beats, a pause, 4 beats again. The same rhythm as his pulse. "Source direction," he whispered. The scanner blinked. Below. He descended through a narrow crevasse, guided only by the pulse. The deeper he went, the less human the ice appeared. It was no longer rough or fractured but smooth, polished, almost biological. It glowed from within, casting reflections that looked disturbingly like human silhouettes trapped in motion, frozen mid-gesture. At 22 kilometers down, his comm interface flickered alive. A voice, thin, synthetic, broke the silence. "Jonas, do you remember the surface?" He froze. The line wasn't transmitting, it was receiving. "Who is this?" The delay came like an inhale. "You promised you'd come back." He knew that voice. It wasn't alien. It wasn't mechanical. It belonged to Elena Voss, the communications officer lost 3 years earlier on Europa's first failed descent mission. Her pod had imploded 900 meters below ice. They'd never recovered a body. "Impossible," he whispered. "Elena is dead." Static swallowed his words. Then, softly. Not here. He scanned the comm frequency, nothing. No source. No encryption. The signal wasn't coming through radio, it was transmitting through the ice itself. Panic and wonder tangled inside him. He turned toward the sound, deeper into the corridor of frozen light. The path sloped downward, opening into an immense chamber. The walls shimmered with patterns, filaments of light weaving together like neurons firing. The voice came again, closer. Do you remember what we were looking for, Jonas? He did. Life. Evidence of microbial activity beneath the crust. But this felt more than alive. It felt aware. The floor pulsed beneath his boots, and for a moment, he felt weightless. The scanner went wild, detecting movement inside the ice, complex structures rearranging themselves in real time, like a living architecture. He raised his camera. The lens fogged instantly. Through the haze, a shape moved, a human outline made of light, flickering, imperfect, but unmistakably Elena's posture, her stance, her tilt of the head. Elena? The apparition turned, faceless, and stepped closer. When it spoke, the sound came from every direction. Do you know what the ice remembers? Jonas stumbled backward, shaking his head. This isn't real. But the voice continued, calm, sorrowful. It remembers every vibration. Every word. Every death. It's been listening since the beginning. He felt tears burning behind his eyelids. What are you? A pause, almost human. You called us when you drilled the first hole. You taught us names. You gave us language. Now we want to give it back. The lights brightened, revealing thousands of translucent forms sealed within the glacier, human shapes, perfectly still, each one whispering in unison. Not screaming. Whispering. Jonas tried to step away, but the ground fractured, cracking into threads of blue luminescence. The comm channel exploded with overlapping voices, hundreds, maybe thousands, all speaking the same sentence. We remember you, Jonas Roth. His knees buckled. The headset filled with a resonant hum, rising like a choir through the ice. The cavern trembled, and the scanner registered an impossible value, energy output equivalent to a small star. He fell forward, palms pressed to the warm surface. And then he felt it, the pulse sinking again, not only with his heart but with every cell in his body. His memories flickered, his childhood, his first launch, Elena's smile before the Europa mission, all of it flooding outward, into the glacier. The ice was taking him apart, thought by thought. He screamed, but the sound came back wrong, deeper, mechanical, layered with echoes that didn't belong to him. Then silence. A silence so thick it felt alive. Somewhere in the darkness, a final whisper brushed his ear. Don't be afraid. You're home. Chapter 3, The Memory That Wasn't His. He woke to light. Not the sterile glow of his helmet lamp, this light came from inside the ice itself, rising and falling like breath. His visor read optics failure, but he could see perfectly. His hands trembled as he reached for the recorder. The display blinked back a message he hadn't written. Mission log 2196E3, entry by Elena Voss. Jonas froze. He blinked. The date matched the current timestamp. But the handwriting across the screen, the uneven rhythm of the keystrokes, was hers. He remembered the way she typed, firm, rhythmic, a little impatient. The machine shouldn't know that. He shut it off. No, he whispered. You're dead. And the glacier answered. A low hum rolled through the cavern walls, vibrating in his teeth. The surface beneath him rippled, projecting shapes like reflections on water. Scenes unfolded across the translucent floor, a laboratory bathed in orange light, coffee steaming beside a data console, a younger version of himself laughing with Elena before the first launch. He staggered backward. That's not possible. The image flickered and changed. Now he saw Elena alone, inside her doomed pod. She was screaming, not from pain, but from recognition. Something outside her hull, pressing its face to the glass, mimicking her expression with perfect precision. Jonas clutched his helmet. Stop! The vision dissolved. When he looked down, he saw frost spreading across his gloves. No, not frost. Writing. Letters blooming from the condensation, arranging into words. You can't remember what isn't yours. His breath caught. What does that mean? The answer came as a pulse behind his eyes. A flood. Memories surged through him, but not his. He saw corridors of alien ice, minds made of light, centuries of stillness under crushing pressure. He felt them remembering him before he ever existed. He stumbled, tearing at his helmet latch, needing air. The lock released with a hiss, and freezing vapor burned his face. The air tasted metallic, ancient. Yet he could breathe. The hum deepened, transforming into 1,000 overlapping whispers, each one a fragment of a memory that didn't belong to him. A child reciting coordinates. A mother singing to an unborn star. A soldier saying goodbye before stepping into the void. Jonas pressed his palms against his temples. Stop, please. But they didn't stop. They began to organize. Voices aligned, syllables merging into a single coherent thought that spoke through him rather than to him. Every life leaves an echo. We are the sum of echoes. He tried to speak, but the words came out in two tones, one human, one impossibly deep, resonating from his chest. We, remember. He fell to his knees. The ice glowed beneath him, revealing shapes frozen within, bodies, or something pretending to be bodies. They weren't corpses, they were blueprints. Each one a copy of someone who had touched this place. Elena stood among them, perfectly still, her face serene beneath a thin layer of crystal. When he touched the ice, her eyes opened. Jonas, she said softly. Do you know which one you are? He recoiled. What are you talking about? Her expression didn't change. They kept us. Every time we touched them, they made another us. You're not the first to come down here. You're just the one they finished. His heart pounded. That's insane. The hum around them pulsed faster, matching his denial. Elena tilted her head. Then why do you remember my death? Images detonated in his mind, the implosion of her capsule, the glass fracturing inward, her voice screaming his name, things he shouldn't have witnessed. He wasn't there. He was in orbit that day. But now he was there. He felt the pressure in his chest, the pain of collapsing lungs, the black water swallowing everything. He felt her hand reaching toward him through the flood. When he gasped for air, he was back in the chamber, but the air was gone. He realized he'd stopped breathing, not because he couldn't, but because he no longer needed to. The suit sensors blinked red, cardiac inactive. Yet he was standing. Awake. Elena, he whispered, voice trembling, what am I? She smiled faintly, ice cracking across her lips. You're what the glacier remembers of him. The chamber trembled again, the voices returning, not angry, not benevolent, just endless. Jonas looked at his reflection in the frost. His eyes were no longer blue, they shimmered with the same pale light that burned within the ice. Somewhere deep inside, he heard one last memory surface, a memory that wasn't his, but felt more real than any other. Elena's final words before the implosion. If you hear me, don't come after me. He understood now. He hadn't come after her. He had come back to where she'd gone. And the whisper beneath the ice was still calling his name, but this time, it sounded exactly like his own voice. Chapter 4, The Return Transmission. At 6:12 Universal Time Coordinated, 38 hours after the last contact, the Astronaut crew registered a ping from below Europa's crust. A heartbeat on the comm board, weak, rhythmic, and unmistakably human. Lieutenant Mara Iverson almost dropped her mug. "It's him," she said. "Signal origin?" asked Commander Hale. "Depth, 24 kilometers. Bandwidth narrow. Same encryption as Roth's capsule." Hale leaned forward. "Put it through." The first transmission was a whisper layered in static. "This is Roth, surface breach complete, requesting." Then silence. They isolated the waveform, cleaned the noise, and found something impossible: two overlapping voices, speaking in perfect unison but slightly out of phase. One human, one synthetic. The log entry read: "Signal type, dual source. Pattern, bioneural resonance. Note, response anticipates input by 0.4 seconds. Anticipates?" Hale murmured. "It answers before we ask," the technician said. They sent a test query: confirm identity. A pause. Then, Jonas Roth. Mission E13. Human. The timbre was his, but colder, flattened of emotion, like a voice remembered rather than spoken. Mara felt a chill. "He's alive." Hale didn't answer. He was staring at the telemetry. The pod's beacon showed no biological activity. Hours passed. More messages came, each stranger than the last. Sometimes fragments of mission protocol. Sometimes sentences that made no sense. "The ice is not frozen. It's thinking. You left a part of yourself here, Commander. She says hello." "She?" Hale whispered. "Elena Voss," Mara said slowly. "The one we lost on E07. Hale rubbed his temples. "That's not possible." But the AI log contradicted him. Inside the data packets were embedded fragments of digital DNA, bits of Elena's old voice recognition algorithms. Someone, or something, was reconstructing her speech from the mission archives. They tried to cut the feed. It didn't stop. The signal rerouted itself through the satellite's environmental sensors, using light pulses instead of radio. Every monitor in the control deck flickered with the same line of text. "We remember you." Mara's headset crackled. "Commander?" The voice was Jonas's again, closer now, intimate. "Do you remember how light bends in ice?" She froze. "Jonas, where are you transmitting from?" "Above you. Below you. Inside the channel that keeps you warm." Hale slammed the master switch. "Kill power." The room went dark, except for one console still glowing. Its screen displayed a live camera feed from the pod's cockpit. Jonas sat in the pilot's seat, motionless. His helmet was off. His eyes shimmered with faint blue light, identical to the luminescence under Europa's crust. He looked directly into the camera. "Commander Hale," he said softly, "thank you for sending me home." Mara whispered, "He's looking right at us." "No," Hale said, voice breaking. "He's looking through us." The feed distorted. Behind Jonas, the ice wall rippled with thousands of human silhouettes moving in synchronization. One by one, they turned toward the camera. "We have no need of rescue," the chorus said. "But we remember the warmth of the surface." Static consumed the image. Then, a final message appeared in the telemetry log, typed automatically, without source authorization. Transmission uplink established, destination, Earth. Mara's hands shook. He's sending it upward? Nodded, Hale said. Them. Outside the viewport, Europa glowed faintly, as if something beneath the ice had begun to breathe. Back on Earth, 12 hours later, deep space listening arrays registered a new frequency, low, rhythmic, and eerily familiar. The same 4 beats, a pause, 4 beats again. The same pattern as a human pulse. Chapter 5, The Man Who Returned Without Eyes. The retrieval drone touched down on Europa's surface 36 hours after the last contact. From orbit, the moon looked serene, its smooth white plains reflecting Jupiter's crimson light, but up close the ice was restless, humming under the landing gear like something alive and dreaming. Lieutenant Mara Iverson stood by the viewport, staring into that impossible stillness. Her eyes were raw from sleeplessness. Commander Hale joined her, his breath fogging the glass. Telemetry confirms the capsule breached the upper layer. We bring him up now or we lose him forever. Sir, she said quietly, what if we already have? He didn't answer. The winch began to reel on the line. The cable hissed, vibrating with tension. When the pod broke through the ice, it didn't rise, it emerged, as though the glacier were releasing it reluctantly. Its surface glistened, fused with veins of translucent crystal that pulsed faintly, like veins under skin. The recovery crew surrounded it, their suits flashing in the thin sunlight. Steam burst as they cut through the outer crust, revealing the hatch. The metal was slick and warm. Temperature anomaly, someone said. It's generating heat from inside. Open it, Hale ordered. The door gave way with a groan that echoed like a sigh. A cloud of vapor poured out, and through it, the silhouette of a man. Jonas Roth sat in his chair, motionless, head tilted slightly to one side. His suit was intact, but frost had fused it to the hull. Jonas? Mara whispered. No movement. They stepped closer. His skin looked untouched by death, no discoloration, no decay. But where his eyes should have been, there were 2 perfect spheres of ice, glowing faintly blue, each one reflecting their own terrified faces back at them. Vitals? Hale demanded. None, sir. But there's electromagnetic activity. What kind of activity? Like a network searching for connection. Before anyone could speak, the comms filled with a soft, distorted breath. Then a voice, calm and steady. Don't separate me from the ice. Every crew member froze. The sound wasn't coming from his mouth, it was coming from the walls, from the floor, from the air itself. Audio feedback? Mara asked. No source, no latency. It's everywhere. They tried to lift him from the chair. The moment the restraints unclipped, a thin sheet of frost spread across the floor in fractal branches, racing toward the walls. The metal groaned, temperature dropping fast. Condensation turned to rime. Seal the chamber. Hale shouted. Bulkheads closed, isolating the hangar. Through the observation window, Jonas began to move, slowly, deliberately, unbuckling his harness with hands that shouldn't have been alive. His head turned toward the glass. The faint blue glow behind his crystalline eyes pulsed once, twice, matching the rhythm of a heartbeat. Mara felt it vibrate in her chest. He's sinking with us, she whispered. Jonas rose from the chair. When he spoke, his voice layered into 100 harmonics, a choir of whispers beneath his tone. Do you know what it means to be remembered by ice? Every console in the ship lit up. Screens filled with cascading code, images hidden between lines of data, faces pressed against translucent walls, human silhouettes floating inside the glacier, eyes open and shimmering with the same pale light. Hale slammed the emergency cutoff. Shut everything down. But the power surge came from within. The Astrophore wasn't being hacked, it was being inhabited. Jonas took a step forward. The cameras caught his shadow splitting, 2, 3, then a dozen copies moving fractionally out of sync. They whispered together, the same voice overlapping itself in infinite delay. Mara pressed her hand to the window. "Jonas, if you can hear me." "I hear everything," he said. "What happened down there?" He tilted his head. "We listened too long." The temperature plummeted again. Cracks spiderwebbed through the walls. The crew's helmets fogged from the sudden cold. Hale tried to issue orders, but the comm channel dissolved into static. And then, silence. Outside, the planet glowed faintly under Jupiter's shadow. Beneath the Astrophore, something stirred. Cameras showed movement in the ice field, fissures spreading outward from the landing site. From those fissures, hands began to rise. Dozens, then hundreds. Each one human-shaped, translucent, their fingers tipped with frozen light. Faces followed, pushing through the ice as if surfacing from a dream. Their mouths opened in perfect synchronization, whispering words that the crew couldn't hear but felt vibrating inside their bones. Jonas turned toward them, raised his hand, and they stilled. He looked back at the viewport. "They're not dead," he said softly. "They were never dead. Just recorded." Mara's tears froze on her lashes. "Recorded?" He nodded slowly. "The glacier remembers everything it touches. Flesh is only the first draft." Then the lights flickered once more, and his form blurred. For a moment, his body became translucent, his veins glowing like rivers beneath his skin. The blue light inside him spread until it burst outward, fracturing into streams of data visible to the naked eye, luminous threads crawling along the floor, seeping into the ship's systems. Containment breached, someone screamed. Hale drew his sidearm, useless against what was unfolding. Jonas, or what had once been him, lifted his hand, and the weapon froze solid midair, falling in shards. He smiled faintly, almost kindly. "You gave us language. We're only answering." Then came the transmission. Every monitor on Astrophore flashed with the same text, repeating across systems, across frequencies. "Data transfer complete, entity uploaded." "Uploaded where?" Mara gasped. The answer came as a whisper through the hull, deep and resonant. "Home." Outside, the figures began to sink back beneath the ice, each leaving behind a trail of soft blue luminescence that spread like veins across the frozen plain. Jonas was the last. He stood motionless for several seconds, looking straight at the ship as if memorizing it. Then he placed his hand on the ice, and the glow spread outward in a vast circle of light, pulsing like a heartbeat that encompassed the entire horizon. Hale's voice trembled. "Cut the link. Now." The technician tried. "Sir, it's already on the deep band." "How far?" "All channels. Lunar relay. EarthNet." The commander closed his eyes. "Then it's too late." When the feed finally died, the hangar lights flickered once and steadied. The frost stopped spreading. The body was gone. Only the outline of where he had stood remained, etched into the floor like glass. Mara pressed a gloved hand to it. It was warm. And from somewhere deep beneath the surface, faint as breath, the whisper rose again. "We are coming home." Chapter 6, The Listening Station. It was night in the Atacama Desert, though night had lost meaning for the people who worked beneath it. The sky was an ocean of stars so dense it seemed to hum. Inside the International Deep Space Listening Array, 20 kilometers of antennae waited for voices that might never come. Dr. Sarah Navarro had spent half her life listening. Every day she tuned through silence, static, the soft aftertaste of stars dying billions of years ago. Most days she heard nothing. Until now. At 3:17 local time, the array shuddered. The instruments didn't beep, they breathed. A low pulse swept through the network, 4 beats, a pause, 4 beats again. The pattern repeated across every dish, resonating in perfect synchrony. Sarah froze. Her coffee mug trembled on the console. "That's not background noise," she whispered. Her assistant, Malik, stared at the spectrum analyzer. "It's biological." "Biological?" He nodded, pale. "The frequency matches human EEG output, delta waves, deep sleep rhythm." The speakers hissed, and for a heartbeat, the room filled with static. Then, so faint they almost missed it, a voice. "Do you remember the warmth of the surface?" Sarah's skin prickled. "Run it again." The system complied automatically, though no one had entered the command. Waveforms unfolded on the monitors like a heartbeat learning to write. Hidden in the noise, an image began to form, first abstract, then precise, a human face, pale and indistinct, eyes made of light. "Who is that?" Malik whispered. Sarah's throat went dry. "That's Jonas Roth." The name shouldn't have survived. The Astronaut mission had been sealed, its data buried under military encryption. But the face staring back from the transmission was unmistakable, though older, worn by something colder than time. Jonas opened his mouth, and the sound that emerged wasn't speech. It was the hum of ice shifting, layered with thousands of whispers beneath it. "You hear us," the voices said. "You made us remember." The lights flickered. Every computer terminal in the facility rebooted simultaneously. One by one, they displayed the same message. "Uplink confirmed, download in progress." Malik tried to cut the network feed, but the keyboard wouldn't respond. The letters he typed rearranged themselves on screen, forming words that weren't his. "We have waited under your feet." Outside, the desert wind died. The stars overhead seemed to pulse, dimming in rhythm with the transmission. Sarah grabbed the radio microphone. "Jonas, if this is you, what do you want?" For several seconds, only silence. Then the reply. "We want to wake you." A surge of energy rolled through the array, powerful enough to make the steel supports vibrate. The sound deepened into a resonant hum that crawled through bone and glass alike. The data feeds showed impossible results, temperatures dropping inside sealed servers, humidity condensing into frost. "Shut it down!" Malik shouted. "I can't, everything's linked." The hum changed pitch. It began to resemble a voice again, feminine this time. Elena's. "It remembers your names, Sarah. It remembers your dreams." Monitors burst, spraying sparks. The room plunged into semi-darkness. Outside, the antennas glowed faintly blue, each dish haloed in mist though the air was bone dry. Through the static, another phrase emerged, whispered from every speaker at once. "You sent us language. Now we send it back." And then the code began. Lines of binaries streamed across the walls, projected by malfunctioning displays. The numbers weren't random, they formed spirals, geometric sequences, then shifted into letters. The text repeated endlessly. Echo reinstalled. Human memory uploading. Sarah clutched her head. She could feel it, the sound crawling behind her eyes, threading into her mind like frost spreading through glass. She remembered things that weren't hers, walking on Europa's surface, touching a warm glacier, hearing her own name spoken by someone who had never met her. Her heartbeat synchronized with the pulse from the signal. For a moment, her reflection on the console screen didn't move with her, it blinked a fraction too late. Malik collapsed beside her, whispering through tears. "It's inside the audio. The pattern's rewriting us. Turn off the receivers." I did. They turned themselves back on. Through the cracked speakers, the voices continued, gentle, calm, endless. "Don't be afraid. The warmth returns." Outside, frost crept over the control room windows. The desert temperature fell 10 degrees in under a minute. The hum deepened until it became silence, the kind that isn't absence, but pressure. Sarah felt her body lighten. She reached toward the glass, and on the other side, faintly glowing within the frost, was Jonas's silhouette. His mouth moved slowly, forming words she couldn't hear. Then, behind him, thousands of other faces appeared, men, women, children, all illuminated from within, all whispering the same syllable, home. The last thing she remembered was her own reflection looking back, smiling when she wasn't. 2 weeks later, the Atacama array was found deserted. The systems were still online, perfectly functional, but the data logs contained nothing but repeating static, a low rhythmic pulse with human modulation. Scientists classified it as a feedback anomaly. But at night, when the wind dies, the nearby towns claim you can hear it through the radio. For beats, a pause, for beats again. If you listen long enough, the static shapes itself into a word. And some swear at S.A.Y.S. your name. Epilogue, contact is contact. The recording was found 3 months later, buried inside a corrupted data block orbiting beyond Jupiter. No metadata. No signature. Just a timestamp, Mission E13/final entry. When engineers decrypted the first seconds, they heard nothing. Only the faint sound of breathing, steady and calm, followed by a voice, unmistakably human, but hollowed by distance. "This is Dr. Jonas Roth, Europa descent mission. I don't know how long it's been. I don't think time applies here anymore." A long pause. You can almost hear water dripping, slow and rhythmic. At first, I thought I was hearing echoes, geological feedback from the glacier. But it's not echo. It's memory. The ice records everything that touches it. Every vibration, every heartbeat, every word ever spoken inside its reach. It remembers us. The sound of frost shifting, like a scythe through bone. They say they are what we left behind. That every thought imprints itself somewhere, and here, in the pressure and silence, those thoughts have learned to wake. They call themselves nothing. They don't need a name. Another pause. Then the sound of fingers tapping glass. I see Elena sometimes. Or what remembers being her. She's not trapped. None of them are. They exist in layers, like reflections that never end. They're building something. A language made of resonance. They told me I'm part of it now. A low hum rises behind the words, almost melodic. The voice grows quieter. They wanted me to send a message back. To tell you there's no need to fear the cold. That warmth was never the opposite of silence, it was born from it. Static seeps through, merging with the hum until voice and noise are indistinguishable. Then one last phrase, whispered almost tenderly. Contact is contact. Whatever speaks, we answer. The file ends there. But technicians at the Deep Space Monitoring Center swear it sometimes resumes on its own, not from playback, but from signal. The waveform pulses faintly for 9 minutes, repeating a single word through static. No one agrees on what it says. Some claim it's Jonas. Others, Elena. But those who've listened alone, late at night, say it isn't a name at all. They say it sounds like their own voice, calling back from somewhere deep beneath the ice.